All right, good Saturday morning to everybody. I'm gonna give it a few seconds to let everybody kind of get in and then we'll get started on this gloomy Saturday morning, at least here in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not sure if any of y'all are from out of town or not. But I'm gonna open up the chat box as I usually do, and I'm gonna see how you all feeling today. So if you can hear me, go ahead and tell me that you can hear me, number one. And number two, let's start the day off by telling me how you're feeling, okay? It says webinar chat. Let me make sure I got the right thing. All right. My chat box is not working. Doesn't seem like nobody's saying. All right, very good. Now people are saying things. Okay, maybe it was the delayed reaction. All right. Very good. So you're feeling good. Feeling good. Good morning. I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning. All right. Good, very rainy day. You feeling good? Everybody's feeling good. Nobody's feeling bad. That's unusual. Did you get everybody got enough sleep? Everybody's got their insulin resistance under control, right? Well, okay. Everybody. All right, good. Somebody's knee is hurting. It's okay. So let's 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 see if we can tackle some of these problems. All right. So I'm going to get started here in just a second. Um, Glad you all could make it on a Saturday morning. I'm going to get out there and do my exercise afterwards. Today is resistance training day. And so basically what we're going to do today is just to kind of go over the general things, the general blueprint of what I want you guys to do. Now, mind you that there are so many people out there, so many influencers on the internet that can tell you what to do. And everybody has their own thing. Some people have, you do the keto diet, and that's fine. Anything that goes along with just diet is kind of a turn off to me. So then they say, okay, fine, you could do this type of diet or this type of diet. And so those things are really, there are so many ways you can actually handle weight management and metabolic health. All right. My way is based upon the research that I've done, and basically the research that I've done along with about 30 years of experience. Because I've seen people who've had surgery, I've seen people who've been on drugs, even back in the days of dinetrophenol, fen, and all those things. And I've seen those people come back with weight regain and other problems as well. So that's the experience part of it. But what I try to present to you today is updated research information, and then I combine that with that experience, and I make this particular protocol. So we have our protocol, and our protocol is based upon four pillars. If you've been here before, you know what those pillars are. I'll show them again to you in my slide presentation. So after the slide presentation, we're going to do a few things. I'm going to give you a slide presentation, and then after that slide presentation, I'm going to show you a video. The video is going to be a little different. As I promised you before, every time you come, I'm going to show you a little bit something different. And I'm going to show you how we got here in the first place, what the food industry, how the food industry got us here in the first place. So you're going to find it a little bit interesting, I think, primarily because we try to handle things with willpower, and the tools that I'm giving you help you with that willpower, as most of you think, but it's something totally beyond that. And so we're going to look at that video, and then we're going to kind of dissect that. And then I'm going to give you a quiz to make sure that you digested what's in the video. It's going to be a fun quiz. I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't taken it yet, but because I just made it up. I made it up from the research articles that I got. Okay. All right. So let me just make sure everybody's in, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. I'm going to be sharing my screens with you as I put my glasses on, figure it out. All right, here we go. Share the desktop. I'm going to actually not share that one. I'm going to share this one, I think. No, this one. All right. So basically, what we're going to be talking about today is we're all here on the same accord, trying to have a better life. And so this saying down here that you can barely read, life's not just about living longer, it's about living healthier longer. Okay. Now, if we enjoy life at all, that's kind of the motto that we want to have because we're here, so we might as well make the best of it. And so the only way we can make the best of it is to make sure that we have our health. I was listening to somebody the other night, and then they said if you have your health, you have hope. And if you have hope, you have everything. So I like little sayings like that because, again, when it starts out with you have your health, you have hope. And if you have hope, the world is your oyster. You can hope will give you everything. All right. So that's what we're going to talk about. And our basic structure is engineering our metabolism. I'm giving you a blueprint on how we're going to accomplish this problem that we're facing. This problem of insulin resistance, this problem of obesity that's taken over the world. And so today, again, like I promised you, I'm going to show you how we got here. Because you can go back in the history books if you want and actually look at our hunter-gatherer ancestors. There was not a problem with obesity back then. There was not a problem with insulin resistance back then. So what's changed? It'll fascinate you to figure out how this came about. It'll fascinate you to see how corporate industry has taken over how we're eating food. All right. So we talk about insulin resistance. Let me just remind you what that is. Insulin resistance, and you can look it up, Google it, WhatsApp it, or whatever, or Chat GPT it. And it is the main leading cause of most chronic disease processes that we know of. Okay? Diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea, brain fog, cancer, any sort of chronic disease that you could think of that's not genetic is usually rooted in insulin resistance. Now, what is insulin resistance exactly? Well, these are the things like I just got through saying: high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, obesity. And obesity is only one of the symptoms. These other symptoms are all along with it as well. Then you get to sleep apnea and fatty liver, heart attack and stroke, and some cancers and dementia. So insulin resistance comes about by what we're several causes of insulin resistance, but the main cause is what we're putting into our mouths. Okay. There are other causes of insulin resistance, for instance, lack of sleep or chronic stress can cause insulin resistance. But the number one reason across the world is the type of food that we're putting into our mouths. And that type of food consistently elevates insulin. Now, insulin is supposed to be elevated when we take in certain things into our mouths, such as proteins that are being broken down and carbohydrates. But it's supposed to go down after that. What happens is that we eat too often, we eat too much of it, and it stays elevated. And it stays elevated without the natural process of going down, then our cells become resistant to it over the years. And then because our cells become resistant to it, it doesn't function as well. Our body and our cells don't function well because insulin is the carrier of the sources of our energy, our glucose and our fat. And if we disproportionately push one of those things or the other into our bloodstream or our fat stores or our muscle stores, if it's disproportional, we get problems with our baseline powerhouses, our mitochondria. And we'll go over a little briefly all that. I'm not going to try to take you into medical school, but we'll go over some of that. All right. Just to kind of let you know my history is that, yeah, I came from the same place. A lot of doctors have. We're not too ashamed to admit it. We're no different. We're human too. And most patients come to me and say, "Well, doc, they ask me two paradoxical questions. Doc, if you've never been where I've been, how are you going to tell me what to do?" And then they go to some of my other friends who are obese, And basically, he said, well, how is this doc going to tell me what to do when he's not even following his own advice? So we got to find the line to balance. But I started with prediabetes, atrial fibrillation. Tongue-tied this morning. Congestive heart failure, hypertension. And that was just at 205. That was not my highest weight. My highest weight was around about 215, 220. But at 205, I still had these problems. And as a matter of fact, when I first was at 215, I didn't have all these problems. So it was a process of insulin resistance over a period of time that makes your body worse. The longer you have insulin resistance, the longer your body will be exposed to this inflammation that this fat causes, especially this fat right in here. This is the visceral fat, the white fat. The longer you're exposed to that, the more problematic it becomes to your overall health. Okay? So this is how I started out. And this is me looking from the side. That's 205 pounds, taking it from a different angle, seeing if I can make it look better. I don't think I did, though. And then this is me. I says, okay, fine. I know I can do this. At least for this picture, I know I can suck it in. So this is me sucking it in. So you can see my lips are pursed like that. I'm holding my breath. When I hold my breath, I'm trying to really, really push it in because my diaphragm is going up. But it didn't do too good of a job, did it? All right. So this is me today. Well, a few months ago. Since that time, I put on a little bit more muscle because I try to practice what I preach, and I try to tell you guys what I'm doing so that at least you can say, "Hey, doc, you're leading it by example." At least, which is the problem that some of my patients said my colleagues don't do. But nonetheless, here it is. Here it is again with me pursing the lips, sucking it in. So it's sucked in a little bit better, and you can compare the two. And you can compare the two where I'm sucking it in here and I'm sucking it in here. All right. So things have gotten better. And now I don't have high blood pressure anymore, not taking any medicine for it. I don't have sleep apnea. I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have any of the things before. I'm now just taking my protein, my herba mate, my casein protein, my whey protein. I'm taking all these things that I'm going to show you just a second on how I do it. And then you decide on how you do it. There's so many ways to do it, but I'm just going to give you the basic blueprint. Once you have that blueprint, you can pretty much do combinations and iterations any way you want to. But you got to have the baseline structure. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But again, let me just kind of show you some other people that have had some of the success that I did. This is one of my patients before bariatric surgery. And I'm not saying that everybody needs bariatric surgery. A lot of people do. A lot of people don't. A lot of people can do it okay with GLP-1. I'm not going to put you on GLP-1 drugs forever. You're probably not going to stay on it forever. In the real life, the stories and the studies are coming out now that people just don't stay on it forever, even though it was meant for you to stay on it forever. The problem is when you come off of it, though, you regain what you lost, including your insulin resistance. Won't get into too much of that particular problem today, but just let you know that not only do we do the GLP-1 drugs, we'll do it to kind of jumpstart your metabolism. We'll do it to possibly get you to surgery, or if we'll do it for you, and if successful, we'll keep you on it a little while. But while we're doing it, we're giving you this tool, and this tool is what we're going to be talking about today. Because you cannot depend upon the tool that I give you, a small pouch or a small gastric bypass, or the tool of GLP-1 forever to do the job. We can't depend upon it forever. We have to combine it with the things we do up here. And this is not willpower. And that's what you're going to find fascinating today from this presentation. This is not about willpower. Anyway, this is one of my patients. She actually happened to have bariatric surgery. And this is her before. And she showed me this thing here. I said, what is this? She said, that's the medal that I won. For what? Well, because she won the contest by taking in that protein, taking in that fiber, doing all the things that she was supposed to do. Uh-oh. Okay. And so she won the contest. And so she is healthier. Now, again, one of the things that the surgery allows that the GLP-1 injections don't allow is that you don't lose a lot of muscle mass. You do have to take your protein in, and you do have to take your protein in by mouth. And once you take that protein in by mouth, you stimulate your own GLP-1 cells in your intestinal tract. That's where GLP-1 originally comes from. If you've been here before, you know that the GLP-1 actually comes from your intestinal tract. They just, Big Pharma, again, in order to make a buck, they took it out and made it into a shot. I don't like that. I use it for certain circumstances, but I don't use it specifically for long-term weight loss, long-term fat loss. Because this young lady took in her nutrients that activated her GLP-1, and the activation of GLP-1 through the gut is through food, protein and fiber. Two places that that protein and fiber will activate through your GI tract. But you're taking in food. You're taking in protein, and it's essential to take in protein. Get yourself GLP-1 shot. It bypasses the gut. It goes to your brain, which is a problem in and of itself. It's a total and no lecture. But it goes to your brain and tells you that you're full. You've eaten all the protein that you need. You've eaten all the nutrients that you need. You're full. Don't eat anymore. And you don't. But the body is dependent upon you taking in that protein. It's dependent upon you taking in that fiber, metabolically speaking. We don't. But if we don't take in protein, the body says, I have to satisfy my daily protein needs. I'm going to get the protein from somewhere, and it breaks down muscle to get it. And so you break down muscle to get it, you lose muscle mass. Muscle mass does two very important things. It's our glucose sink. And what I mean by glucose sink, it means that when we take in any sort of carbohydrates, anything of that sort, the insulin that raises up is supposed to push the glucose that we just took in into our muscles. That's what it's primarily there for. Glucose is our primary thing that we use to power our muscle cells in our brain. All right. The second thing that it basically does is our metabolic engine. We burn fat. We burn the excess stuff fat by muscle. It just doesn't melt away because we wish it away. There's nothing in that drug at all that melts fat away. It's the fact that we're not taking anything in, and we're not taking anything in, we're not taking in protein in, our muscle mass deteriorates. If our muscle mass deteriorates, then we lose our metabolic engine that we have to burn fat, and we lose our glucose sink. And when those two together, there's some things that are going to happen. So here she is before, here she is after. So anyway, that's that one. So I'm going to stop sharing on that one, and I'm going to get to this video. I'm going to try to cut it down to maybe we're starting to do these things in 1 hour. So get you out of here. But I know you want to get out there and exercise, right? All right. So I'm going to share it again. See if I can get to the right place again. If I can. Yeah, I think I'll do this video here. Okay. Put that in full screen, pull this thing in, this little marker over here. So I'm just talking to myself. And let me just look at the chat box. Everybody's just saying good morning, good. Okay. If you have any special questions or anything, put it in the chat box. Every now and then you'll see me look to the screen left, my right. But listen to this. This is going to be sort of interesting to you. And it's going to show you how we got here. I may stop it because some of some of the things that they do, they go pretty fast. What I want you to kind of grasp this. And so the reason that I'm going to show you this is so you can grasp it, grasp the idea, because now that we have the tool, whether they're GLP-1 drugs or whether they're surgery, we've got to incorporate this part. And I'm going to show you the traps, the landmines along the way that have been put there intentionally. But then we've got to be able to figure out how we're going to get around those landmines. So I've given you the original pillars that we have, the four pillars: the protein, the fiber, the fitness, and the fasting. Those four pillars are the pillars our program are built on. Those things kind of get you to a certain place if you're able to do them. But we've got to be able to manage our food intake on a day-to-day basis, and we just can't do it by willpower. Now, making your smaller stomach and rerouting your intestinal tract and stimulating your hormones in your intestinal tract is a way to do it. But even that can be sabotaged by these landmines that we're going to have to recognize. So without further ado, let me just kind of let it show you to it. And I'll be taking my ugly picture off here for a second.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe everything you thought you knew about your eating habits. You know, if you've ever felt trapped in a cycle of self-destructive eating, or maybe you felt guilty because you just couldn't stick to a diet, well, I really want you to listen closely. We are completely dismantling the myth of willpower right now. Instead, we're going to look at the hard neuroscience of exactly why we eat what we eat, and more importantly, how you can use science-backed strategies to hack your brain's habit loop and take your control back. So let's start with the big, obvious question here. Why does willpower always seem to fail us when it comes to junk food? I want to validate that struggle for you right out of the gate, because relying on sheer willpower to break bad habits, it's a biological trap. It is absolutely not a personal failing. You see, your ability to make effortful, rational decisions draws from a very limited, easily depleted metabolic budget in your brain. When you're stressed out, tired, or just emotionally drained, that budget hits absolutely zero. Willpower isn't just some muscle you need to flex harder, it's a battery. And honestly, our modern world is perfectly designed to drain it. Let's look under.
Let me just kind of say that's one of the parts I want you to listen to, is that the willpower is coming from your prefrontal cortex, the frontal cortex of your brain, and it has a daily budget. And the daily budget is spent by us thinking about other things in life: the children, the kids, the college education, the job. And that that prefrontal cortex tells us what we're supposed to do and what we're supposed to be in life. It's our CEO of our brain. Okay, then there are other portions of the brain that are urges and all that kind of stuff. You learn some of those things maybe in high school or in college psychology courses. But this frontal part of the brain has a budget. In other words, if you use a lot of it with worry or stress, at the end of the day, you're going to be most vulnerable because it's giving up its brain. That's what this part is trying to show you here. So I didn't mean to stop it that way, but I wanted to make sure that that just didn't go over your head or go over your prefrontal cortex. So anyway, hold on to that thought, and I'll just kind of back it up just a bit, make sure.
To flex harder. It's a battery. And honestly, our modern world is perfectly designed to drain it. Let's look under the hood to see the actual battle being fought. On one side, you've got your prefrontal cortex. This is the rational decision-making center of your brain. It holds all your long-term goals, like eating healthier. But as we just established, its metabolic budget is super sensitive to stress. On the flip side, we have the basal ganglia. This is your brain's incredibly powerful subcortical autopilot system. And guess what? It doesn't care about your long-term goals at all. It only cares about efficiency. It encodes repeated behaviors into automatic loops. So when stress depletes your rational prefrontal cortex, the basal ganglia gladly takes the wheel, running your deepest, most ingrained habits totally on autopilot.
Okay. So again, that pretty much goes with what I'm going to be trying to focus on, is that once we deplete our prefrontal cortex by life, because life happens, the stress and the cortisol release and all of that, then our more basic brain functions just take over. So this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is the structural part that keeps our lives focused on what we're supposed to do. supposed to be healthy. We're supposed to eat right. We're supposed to live life well, and we're supposed to do all the right things. But then, like they're saying, the science has shown that this can be attacked by so many things in our lives, mostly stress, mostly other things that are attacking it, and it basically drains down. All right. So then you have I don't want you to remember all these uh, biological terms, but I'll show them in a simpler fashion in just a second. Okay.
Okay, moving on to section 1, the architects of addiction and big tobacco's blueprint to really break free from your habit loops.
Now, this is the part that I was talking about. This is where everything came from. This is what I want you all to check out. And this is what I want you all to understand. There's a bigger goal as far as the foods that we eat. We they're being designed for us to eat them, no matter whether no matter whether they're nutritious for us or not. As a matter of fact, the less the nutritious they are, the more money it makes for certain industries. I just wanted to kind of show you all the history of where the food industry came from. And I had some old slides that I used to show about this, and I was looking for them this morning. I can't find them. But check this out. Check out this the you say, well, what does tobacco have to do with what we're talking about today? Check it out just for a second, okay? Let me go back.
On to section 1, the architects of addiction and big tobacco's blueprint to really break free from your habit loops. We have to look at the heavily engineered corporate system that's triggering them in the first place. Back in the 1970s and 80s, major tobacco giants like R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris started buying up massive processed food companies. We're talking brands like Kraft, General Foods, and Nabisco. By 1987, Philip Morris had literally created the largest processed food corporation in the world. And why does this matter to us? Because they systematically transferred their expertise directly from cigarettes to your grocery store shelves. They took tobacco chemists who knew exactly how to chemically mask the harshness of smoke and had them mask the bitter chemical tastes of food preservatives. They even took aggressive youth-targeted marketing strategies like loyalty programs modeled right after Marlboro promotions and applied them to sugary drinks. The whole goal was to establish early life neurological reward sensitization in kids. Pretty crazy, right? So why does the food industry intentionally choose to weaponize our food? Well, it all comes down to basic corporate motivations. First up, shareholder demands dictate that they have to maximize profit by selling the absolute maximum amount of product. If they make the food healthier, people naturally buy less, and executives face severe backlash for lost profits. Second, by engineering products to be hyper-palatable, they secure what's called price inelastic demand. That's a fancy way of saying you're going to keep buying the product no matter how much they raise the price. Because these ultra-processed foods trigger the exact same dopaminergic pathways as addictive drugs, consumer demand stays remarkably stable even when prices go way up. By cultivating this neurobiological dependence, the processed food industry successfully bumped its profit margins from a standard 1% all the way up to 5%.
I'm not exactly sure why I increased the speed of this talking, but anyways, I wanted to slow it down a little bit just to make sure that y'all grasp the concept that when they put more regulations back in the 70s and 80s on the tobacco industry, their profits went down because the government was saying this causes cancer. We got the data that causes cancer. This causes severe lung disease. We got the data. Let's cut it out. Quit smoking in public. Quit smoking in blah blah blah. So they cut the smoking. So the profit level of cigarette smoking went down. All those chemicals that made smoking addictive, those were engineered to get rid of the bad taste. Anybody who's tried smoking cigarettes, when you first started, it doesn't taste good. You cough, but you become addicted to the substance. And so basically, what happened is that they went ahead and took when the profit margin started going down. What did these companies do? What did R.J. Reynolds? What did these companies who make cigarettes do? They bought food industries. They bought Kraft, Nabisco. They bought General Mills. The owners of the cigarette companies bought the food industry. Now, how crazy is that? And basically, they brought together their scientists along with them. They said, okay, make this food that we can really, really make cheaply, but all the chemicals we have to add to it, yeah, we know we got to make it super palatable. We got to make it do certain things to the brain. Well, those required chemicals. And then they had to make those chemicals to where they would be tasty and it would affect certain portions of the brain. So all those things that we call preservatives, all those additives, all those multiple things you see on the side of a carton that they're adding into it, that stuff is intentional. And that stuff is the stuff that affects our brain. And you'll see that in just a second. And so I just wanted to kind of give you a historical perspective of some of this stuff. It's wild.
Let's dive right into section 2, the biological hijack. So how do these products actually hijack your internal circuitry? Well, it starts with something called the bliss point. Food scientists deliberately combine refined carbohydrates and added fats, often in a precisely calibrated 1-to-1 energy ratio. This specific combination is virtually non-existent in the natural world. And because it's so incredibly unnatural, it triggers a super additive dopamine surge. Basically, it creates a massive, unnatural explosion of pleasure in your brain's reward center. This artificial pleasure response is so strong that it effectively short-circuits your brain's natural fullness signals. It literally overrides your biology to drive compulsive overeating. And trust me, they don't stop there. Have you ever wondered why you can sit down and eat an entire giant bag of Cheetos or popcorn and somehow not feel full? It's all thanks to a sensory illusion called vanishing caloric density. These foods are explicitly engineered with an unstable aerated structure that rapidly melts down the second it hits your mouth. This tricks your oral sensors and your brain into thinking you haven't actually consumed any calories at all. Because your brain is totally fooled, your stomach's stretch signals get delayed. That allows you to ingest endless empty calories at warp speed before your body's hormones can even tell your brain to stop. To really lock this all in, we have to talk about chronic stress. Chronic stress physically remodels your brain. It sounds the alarm in your amygdala, which is your brain's emotional threat detector. This floods your entire system with cortisol, which drains your prefrontal cortex's cognitive battery and actually shrinks it over time. And simultaneously, it fortifies your habit-driven striatum. So picture this, you're stressed, your decision-making center is completely offline, and you default straight back to those self-destructive, highly engineered eating routines. But here's the good news. We are going to look at some highly effective, science-based techniques to fix this neurochemical problem, completely leaving aside any need for pharmaceuticals or GLP-1 drugs. You already possess the natural neurological hardware to fight back. Which brings us to section 3, the arsenal, 5 neuroscience-backed strategies. Tool number 1 is environmental design and pre-commitment. Because those cue-triggered dopamine spikes generate irresistible, rapid urges, strategic environmental design is vastly more effective than willpower. You're basically bypassing the prefrontal cortex entirely by adding extreme physical friction to your bad habits. Refuse to keep processed foods in your house. Block those digital food delivery apps on your phone right now. By establishing a pre-commit.
That's important. That's important. So they're going to give you 5. I'm going to narrow it down to 2. But basically, just like an addiction in alcohol, take the stuff out of your cabinets. Take the materials that we're going to be talking about out of the cabinets, the fast foods, the things with the box or a barcode. Take them out of your cabinets, get them out of your sight, because at the middle of the night, when you're drained, when your prefrontal cortex is drained, and you come home and basically that frontal cortex saying, okay, fine, do whatever. I don't care. I'm tired. And then your other portion of your brain takes over and looks in that cabinet. And you got it there, you're going to eat it. You know that. You know that. No matter how small your stomach is, no matter how small I've made it, if it's there, so get it out. Just like an alcoholic has to get rid of all the alcoholic stash that they have in their cabinets. Got to. So take away the temptation. Now that ain't gonna be easy for a lot of people, but just do it. All right. And the second one, I'll stop the video and tell you what the second one that I want you to do.
Device when your rational brain is actually online. You restrict your future self's access to immediate temptations. This prevents that dopamine craving spike from ever happening in the first place. Strategy number 2 is somatic or body-based stress reduction. Remember how stress takes your rational brain completely offline? Well, to break a bad habit, you have to manually override the amygdala's alarm system. You need to physically activate your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest network. You literally have to give your rational brain the capacity to make conscious choices again before you can even attempt to change your behavior. And here is a highly actionable technique to do exactly that. It's called box breathing. Next time you feel a craving or a stress spike, try this. You're going to inhale.
So pay attention to this. This is the second. This is the second thing that it's basically coming from mindfulness. And what you're going to do is you're going to put those desires on a leaf and let it float away. But this is how you do it. You become aware of your body. All right. So listen to this one.
For 4 seconds. Then hold that breath for 4 seconds. Exhale slowly for 4 seconds. And then pause, totally empty for 4 seconds. Highly actionable technique to do exact rational brain the capacity to make conscious choices again before you can even attempt to change your behavior. And here is a highly actionable technique to do exactly that. It's called box breathing. Next time you feel a craving or a stress spike, try this. You're going to inhale for 4 seconds. Then hold that breath for 4 seconds. Exhale slowly for 4 seconds. And then pause, totally empty for 4 seconds. That extended exhale and pause directly stimulate your vagus nerve. This rapidly lowers your cortisol levels, slows down your heart rate, and restores functional connectivity straight back to your decision-making center. It isn't just about relaxation. This is actual neurological reprogramming. Strategy 3 is cultivating disenchantment. Look, you can't simply order your brain to stop wanting junk food, but you can absolutely force it to update the food's reward value. When you do eat a highly processed food, I want you to pay hyper-focused attention to the actual physical sensations. Notice the chemical aftertaste. Notice that physical sluggishness that hits you 20 minutes later. In one smoking cessation study, a participant really paid attention to a cigarette and realized it literally smelled like stinky cheese and tasted like straight chemicals. Experiencing the absolute truth firsthand breaks the brain's illusion. This creates a state of disenchantment, proving to your basal ganglia that the food just didn't deliver the reward it promised. To help cultivate this disenchantment, we use something called the RAIN method. Instead of just suppressing a craving, which honestly just makes it stronger, you observe it with curiosity. First, recognize that the craving is building. Next, acknowledge and accept that the urge is there, without even trying to fix it. Then, investigate how it physically feels in your body. Is your mouth watering? Are your shoulders tense? Finally, note and mentally label those feelings. By observing the urge as just a temporary wave, it naturally weakens the automatic habit loop as the craving just passes right by. Strategy 4 relies on identity-based habit encoding. How you internally frame your goals actually changes which parts of your brain get activated. Instead of saying, I am eating healthy, which is just a goal-framed behavior, adopt the mindset of, I am someone who eats healthy.
Let me add that one in there too, because I eat healthy is a goal. You got to make it personal. You are someone who eats healthy. That's a much, much more powerful signal. And this is not me just talking about, this is basically based upon science. This is where this comes from. Putting that out there to where you're saying to yourself, I am someone who eats healthy makes a big difference. Let me go over that in just a second.
How you internally frame your goals actually changes which parts of your brain get activated. Instead of saying, I am eating healthy, which is just a goal-framed behavior, adopt the mindset of, I am someone who eats healthy. It seems small, but this subtle shift engages the medial prefrontal cortex, which is your brain's self-referential processing hub. It creates broader, much more stable neural networks that actually accelerate the transfer of this new behavior right into an automatic routine. It completely outperforms traditional goal setting. And this brings us to our final strategy, finding a bigger, better offer, or a BBO. Your brain is never going to let go of an automatic habit unless it's presented with something that is genuinely more rewarding. You simply can't rely on restriction forever. You have to replace the unwanted behavior with an action that holds a superior, deeper reward value. Over time, your brain will recognize that the authentic mental clarity, calm, and energy of a regulated nervous system is vastly superior to the temporary, frantic, and honestly disappointing relief of a junk food binge. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today in this explainer. You now know exactly how the architects of addiction engineered our food environment to hijack your biology just for profit. But much more importantly, you now possess the exact neurological arsenal you need to outsmart them. Environmental design, somatic stress reduction, disenchantment, identity encoding, and finding a bigger, better offer. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to carry with you. Will you continue to let the food industry run your neurochemistry on autopilot, or will you use these science-backed tools to take back control? The choice and the power is entirely yours.
All right. With all of that said, let's go to the quiz to see if it kind of registered with you. I wanted to make sure that, let me get this bar out the way. Yeah. If I can, I have so many things on my screen. Get that out the way. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's make this big. Can y'all see that? So now we're going to have participation here. Now let's all take this quiz together. Okay? All right. It's like somebody said, it's like, would you rather be healthier or temporarily satisfied and feel guilty afterwards? That's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about. And so the part of the brain that these chemical foods are taking over, that the part of the brain that makes that decision. Would you rather be healthier longer, like we talked about in the original slide? That's that frontal cortex. That's the CEO of your brain. It makes you make the right decisions. When you start deteriorating that part, and when you start actually taking in the chemicals that of your mesolimbic system, and a portion of this, we'll talk about the want and the like system. The want system is mediated by dopamine. I want something, and I have a little video on that. I'm not sure if I'll sound to show it, but when you really, really want something, you think, okay, fine, this I really, really want it because I like it. Well, the chemical engineers have been able to separate that. You've never found in the wilderness where a tiger killed this rabbit prey, and it says, listen, I need a baked potato to go along with this meat. So you never had this carbohydrates and fat mixed together out there in the world of survival. Now what they've done is they've been able to pull those two together, because the fats and the carbohydrates, and you eat them one on one, you stimulate the dopamine, and you stimulate the dopamine cycle, or the dopamine part of the brain, is directly tied to what I want. So it used to be that what I want, I liked, but now they've separated it. So what you want right now, you may not even like. It's deep. It's very, very deep. But let's take these tests, and then we'll go with the slides and show you exactly what I'm talking about. That was, let's see, let me go back to, let's see. I haven't answered these things. Let me go back to, okay, yeah. We go to start at number one. Previous. I was just kind of going through these. You can tell if I actually looked at them, that the answers would be there. So this is my first time seeing them. So I'll probably get it wrong, some of these answers too. Because again, this is something that we all need to know. Let me make it a little bit bigger. All right. So which industry's historical documents reveal that its chemists applied expertise in chemical optimization and rapid delivery systems to engineer their modern food supply? A, the petroleum industry. B, the textile industry. C, the pharmaceutical industry. And D, the tobacco industry. All right. Y'all go ahead and put y'all's answers in. Everybody should get that right. Except one of my star patients, she got it wrong. But anyway, it's gonna be the tobacco industry. That's right. Major tobacco corporations like Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds acquired food giants in the 1980s. They acquired Nabisco. They acquired all these food industries. They bought them because their sales in cigarettes was going down. And they transferred addictive product strategies and flavor masking technologies to processed foods. Amazing. All right, let me go here. Next. Two, what is the primary reason the food industry engineers ultra processed products to be addictive? What's their primary reason? Why would they do that to us? Number one, to improve to improve the nutritional density of inexpensive ingredients. B, to secure price inelastic demand and maximize shareholder profits. C, to comply with international food safety and health standards. D, to provide long-lasting energy for consumers with busy schedules. Let me see how many of y'all answered that one. Let's see. Everybody got that one right. B, to secure any elastic price, any elastic demand, and maximize shareholder profits. It was all about money. And you all know as much as I do is in that current situation, just follow the bill, just follow the dollar bill, follow the money. Whether something is healthy or not, no, just follow the money. So it says addictive products trigger neurobiological dependence, ensuring that consumer demand remains stable even when prices increase, which satisfies investor expectations for high profit margins. So even when certain foods increase, you're going to complain about it. But the natural foods like eggs, you really complain about that. But when you don't hear so much, when the cost of Cheerios goes up or the cost of those boxes, you don't hear much. All we heard about recently was, oh, the price of eggs going up. Well, everything else went up too. But nobody was complaining about Cheerios, Frosted Flakes, Fruit. Nobody was complaining about that. It was so interesting that this particular article that was in this research observed that particular phenomenon. We all got on eggs, and eggs is yeah, it was expensive, but everything else was interesting. All right, let's go to the next one. Let's see. How did I get it? Make it smaller again. Next, I'm not going to go through all 15 of them. What mathematical ratio refined carbohydrates to added fats? This is important. Is engineered into this bliss point. Foods to trigger a super additive dopamine surge. Now remember, dopamine is that I want it. I don't care if I like it or not. I want it now. And it used to not be that way. Was it a 10-to-1 ratio? B, a 1-to-4 ratio, C, a 1-to-1 ratio, and D, a 5-to-2 energy ratio. You're right. Everybody got that right. It is C. It is C. It says this specific energy ratio of carbohydrates to lipids is virtually non-existent in nature. Like I said, you don't find a tiger, or you don't find anybody. If you find they're either eating all fruit or they're either eating all meat or all protein, but they don't combine them. We routinely combine. We routinely have, a little bit of carbohydrates, a little bit of baked potato, macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, along with our steak or our salmon. There's never been that way before, but there's a reason for it. It's because it's stimulating your dopamine, your want. So the more you have that, the more you're going to want more of it. All right. All right, so that's why, and you notice what's not in here is basically protein. Or protein is mostly a structural thing. That's why we talk about prioritizing protein and fiber. Because protein and fiber is okay, but protein and fat really stimulates that want, that dopamine surge. And that's a problem. All right, next. How does the phenomenon of vanishing caloric density, trick the brain into overconsumption? Let's see. By melting rapidly in the mouth to signal that fewer calories have been eaten, by suppressing the release of dopamine in the reward centers, by using artificial sweeteners that contain no actual caloric energy, by providing a large volume of fiber that fills the stomach without energy. This is huge, primarily because, at one point in time, back in the day when I showed you that big belly, whatever melted in my mouth, and what the number one thing that melted in my mouth was ice cream. Was ice cream. And you just don't know how many calories you consume until you've eaten half that carton of ice cream. Cotton candy melts in your mouth. You know how many calories that is when you finish that cotton candy stick? Popcorn, all these things, Cheetos, air, it, it melts in your mouth and it gives you that sense. These are all engineered foods. All right. So which one do we have? We say, let's see, me too, Doc. Uh-oh. Am I getting the right question here? Let's see, 4. I see a bunch of C's here. It says sweeteners. Okay, so the answer is going to be by rapidly melting in the mouth, right? When food collapses instantly upon contact with saliva, oral mechanoreceptors fail to register, meaning that if you eat meat, you got to chew it, chew it, chew it. If you eat fish, you got to chew it, chew it, chew it, chew it. The mechanoreceptors in your mouth tell you, okay, fine, you're eating and you're, but when you just put stuff in your mouth and it melts, you have, and it contains more calories than that steak does, that's a problem. And that fails to register the intake. Those, if you decrease the receptors, that delays the stomach's stretch signals and the feeling of fullness. So you can eat a whole bag of potato chips, and people do that without feeling full. And at the end of the thing, that they don't feel so good. Which technique is used by food engineers to prevent the brain from becoming bored with a single flavor, allowing sustained eating? I don't know this one. Let's see. Let's see if I can guess it with you guys. All right. Which technique is used by food engineers to prevent the brain from becoming bored with a single flavor? Bypassing sensory specific satiety through complex yet flat flavor profiles, adding bitter compounds to mask the sweetness of added glucose, reducing the amount of sodium to allow sugar to dominate the profile, increasing the intensity of a single distinct umami flavor. That's I gotta guess at this one just like you guys did. Let's see, everybody. What is everybody saying on this? A, bypassing censorship the complex yet flat. That may be right. What I'm gonna say, because I think that they did a lot of this C stuff. But let's look at A first. Ah, you got me. Very good. Bypassing by blending subthreshold concentrations of sweet, salty, that's where I got the salt from, and savory notes, the food avoids a single dominant flavor that would cause the brain to signal into the meal. Fascinating. Fascinating. Hope you guys find it as fascinating as I do. Why is relying on willpower ineffective for managing cravings under chronic stress? That's a good one. That's a very good. Chronic stress strengthens the connections in the rational prefrontal cortex. Stress depletes the prefrontal cortex, limited metabolic budget. Willpower is a learned skill that most adults have not yet developed. And D, the amygdala shuts down during stressful events to save energy. Everybody should get that one, right? Well, almost everybody. Okay. Chronic stress, does it strengthen the connections in the rational prefrontal cortex? Nope. Does it deplete? Let's see if that's right. That's right. It depletes it. Cortisol interrupts communication in the brain and drains the energy needed for rational thinking. Rational thinking is the key. That's what the frontal cortex does, forcing the brain to default to automatic low energy habit loops. That's where it's coming from. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give a couple more. I'm not going to go through all 15 for sure. In the rain mindfulness. The thing that I want you all to get out of that mindfulness thing is that exercise where you're taking the box exercise, well, that really has been shown in a lot of our studies to stimulate the vagus nerve. And that is very highly effective when you go to reach for something. But the key is this: don't don't reach for something because it should not be in the cabinet. Get it out of the cabinet. Okay. I'll show you. I can show you my cabinet now. There's nothing in there. There's some sardines and I need to eat today. All right, let's go to the next one. What somatic technique is recommended to slowly, as I was just saying, to slowly and restore functional connectivity to the regional brain during a stress spiral? Brock's breathing. Yep, that's going to be it, right? Yep. Structured breathing methods activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Lowering I may say sympathetic. I meant parasympathetic nervous system, lowering the heart rate and allowing the prefrontal cortex to come back online. That is so cool. That is so cool. Well, since we all knew that one, let's see if we can do one more. How does environmental design outperform willpower in breaking an ultra processed food habit? How does environmental design? It trains the rational brain to become immune to the effects of dopamine. It increases the brain's metabolic budget for making tough choices. It bypasses the prefrontal cortex by adding friction to undesired behaviors. It relies on a 10-day Let me see. I don't know the answer to that. Let me see if y'all know the answer to that. Everybody's saying A. Oh, or did you? Somebody said C. C is the right answer. All right. I inadvertently hit A because somebody that was from the last question. But it bypasses the prefrontal cortex by adding friction to undesired behavior. By removing temptations from the house, out of the cabinet, or deleting delivery apps, you're eliminating the cues that trigger dopamine spikes. Get rid of Uber Eats, get rid of DoorDash, and when you have to go get some food, you have to get up and put your shoes in so you got to get out the house and do it. You'll think about it first, and that reinforces your frontal cortex. You eliminate the cues that trigger the dopamine spikes. Because if you basically just sit there and let it come to your door, or you sit there and let it sit in your cabinet, you're gonna go for it. Okay? All right. All right, very good. Let's see here. And let's go to number 10. Let's go out one more and then that's it. What is the biological basis for the 10-day taste reset? I don't remember that one. The liver takes exactly 10 days to clear out all artificial preservatives. Human taste buds physically renew every 10 to 14 days. I didn't get to that article. Dopamine receptors in the brain are completely rebuilt within 10 days. It takes 10 days for the amygdala to stop sending hunger signals. You guys may be smarter than me on this one. Which one do y'all think? Let's see. Liver takes exactly 10 days. Anything that says exactly is not right. I learned that in test taking. Human taste buds physically renew every 10 to 14 days. I don't know about that. Dopamine receptors in the brain are completely, exactly, and completely. So you know it's not A or C. It takes 10 days. So it's going to be B or D. It's these people pick D, and D is the right answer. Human taste buds physically renew every 10 to 14 days by avoiding hyperpalatable additives for this short window. This is cool. I didn't know that. Newly grown taste receptors are more sensitive to the natural sweetness and saltiness of whole foods. So just going in without it for 10 to 14 days, that is so cool. Okay. All right. So I'm going to close that out. And I'm going to stop the share for this. Turn the video back on. All right. All right. So I hope that was interesting to you all because it was quite interesting to me. But just to kind of, I'm going to do it at 10 o'clock today. Just to kind of reiterate things that you all get on your way. I want to make sure that you all have the 4 basic pillars in mind. Okay. And those 4 basic pillars are fiber, fitness, protein, and fasting. Okay. And remember the fasting part is probably one of the most misunderstood portions of that 4 pillars cycle because I got up this morning and I'm supposed to be fasting, right? And unfortunately, I had a little bit of a headache, so I took a couple of aspirin this morning when I got up. When I took that aspirin, I took it with a little bit of almond milk, completely broke my fast. So for the rest, I was supposed to fast till 12 noon, but as soon as you take in calories, whether it's sweetener in your coffee or whether it's cream in your coffee or whether there's a little bit of milk to take I should have taken it with water, period. And so the fasting part, if you're really going to do fasting, you got to do it for at least 16 hours, 16 or 18. You'll learn that from the last session and you'll learn it again in the next session because we'll go over it again. But 16 to 18 hours because fasting, the fasting doesn't really kick in until after 14 hours. Okay. And what that fasting does is your insulin levels are low. You're not taking in anything with any substance in it. Your insulin levels are low. The lower your insulin are, the lower your insulin levels are, the more fat you burn. Okay. And you're going to also get rid of certain amounts of damaged cells out of your bloodstream. You got to do that every day. Okay. Then number 2, we're going to concentrate next time again on keeping our muscle mass because that's the second thing that I saw this week in my office that people were not doing correctly. They were not fasting correctly, and they were not doing any resistance training. Everybody told me, yep, I do my walking. And I was proud of that. I was very proud of that. But everybody also told me, except for maybe one person, yep, I don't do my resistance training. Yeah, I'll get around to it. And it's that mindset again, and our minds are being hijacked by these foods because that dopamine response and all that is basically cool. And I'll have this stuff. George, I think, is on the line. I'll have this stuff. This especially that to me the more powerful part of this what I just showed you in video format is the audio format. And I've intentionally made the audio podcast of it where it's around about 27 to 30 minutes. You know why I did that? Because I want you to put those little headphones on, put that podcast on. We're going to have it downloaded to our website. Put that podcast on and basically click that play button and walk for 30 minutes or do your exercise, your resistance training for 30 minutes. But doing it while you're listening to, and it's easier, it's much, much easier to walk listening to a podcast than it is to lift weights. Because lifting weights, you really got to concentrate on lifting the weights. Okay. So do it with the walking. Okay. So we'll have it and we'll have some of these things uploaded to the, and for my Spanish speaking people, I will basically get it translated into, and including the slides into Spanish. I'm not sure why I'm saying this now because they're not understanding me. But anyway, we'll have it translated, and we'll have it both in audio format as well as on the slide format. It's powerful stuff, and we need this reinforcement every single day. But you got to know where it came from, and so you got to know every single day that you're being sabotaged, and you're being sabotaged with the foods you eat. So the first things you do, get it out of your cabinet and take the food apps off your thing. I used to have DoorDash. I eat DoorDash all the time, deliver my food here but now I got to get up and go get it. And I know we got a little bit of problems because of gas money too, right? All right. So let me ask you these last questions, then I'm gonna let y'all go. Okay. What's the best brand of protein shake and protein gram amounts should we take for the break the noon fast? The protein that I use, there's no best brand, but this is the kind of the inexpensive brand that I have. NutriCost, 30 grams. And I use two of these, or one and a half, I get about 40 grams. Because when you get 40 grams of this stuff, you get that 2.5 grams of leucine. And if you've been here before, you know what I'm talking about. Because you got to have the leucine and the amino acids in here in order to start the muscle protein synthesis. Okay. And that's how you break your fast. All right. If you don't want to make your own shakes, you can get some of this stuff. They sell this anywhere, Costco and all that. This is protein. But basically, this protein here, 30 grams. So I got to take it again. For me, as an older person, anybody over the age of 40, 45, got to take one and a half of these. And I'll add, because it doesn't have the leucine, I got to add some leucine to it. So I take my leucine, take my little scoop of leucine, take this thing and get the little scoop of leucine. I'll put it in here. And then I'll drink it. I'll shake it up and I'll drink it because this by itself doesn't have the amount of leucine that we need. It has the vitamins, but it doesn't have the amount of leucine. Okay. And then finally, before you eat any of your meals, you got to take your fiber. Okay. And like I said, back in the day in the real world, we didn't have carbohydrates and fats together. You got carbohydrates or fats. But today we're always eating our protein and we're always eating our fiber. And basically, if you want to take the fiber, and you take the fiber in the form of this type of fiber, the glucomannan, the psyllium husk. This is psyllium husk mixed with this fiber here, the balanced fiber. So I got this in here and this in here. I'll put that water in there and I'll stir it up. I'll drink that before my meal. Okay. All right. So somebody says, please put the leucine back on screen. It's 5 grams. You only need 2.5 grams in order to start muscle protein synthesis. This has 5 grams. I'll just go ahead and show you what the 5 gram scooper looks like. Is this thing here? So you pick, and so I only put in like half of this thing to give me my 2.5. Sometimes I'll go ahead and put in five. More leucine won't hurt you. But for convenience, when I'm out on the road or in a different city, yeah, I take a bunch of these, and they have these in any place in the world. And so, but you got to get your leucine associated with this part right here because it doesn't contain the leucine you need. Okay. Uh, Somebody said, "What's the brand of the soluble fiber that expands in water that you have in your office?" That's this stuff. Okay, that's the balance. And so I just just for the soluble fiber in Metamucil is the hydrolyzed fiber. I don't recommend that. Um, I would recommend something stronger than the non-hydrolyzed on Amazon. It's fine, but this fiber and the one you get on Amazon are about the same price. So six one way, half a dozen the other. All righty. What's the name of again? The fiber? It's either the psyllium husk, Psyllium. That's on Amazon. This is called Balance. You can get this on Amazon. We have I don't know if I have the QR code here, but in our office we have the QR code, or we could give me an email address and I can send you the QR code. If you get it at Amazon, if you get it, you can get it at Walmart, Amazon, Target. But it's more expensive when you get it from those sources. I can give you the QR code for the ones I sell in the office. Okay. What fiber do you use? This one. This is my fiber. This has glucomannan. This has uh doesn't have guar gum. It has glucomannan. It has locust bean gum. It has pectin fiber, and it has oat bran fiber. This is what I use. And sometimes when I really really want to get strong, and I really so there are techniques that I'm going to again begin to train you guys with as well. But when I feel like I'm going to go and have me some pancakes today, and see, that's the thing that I've changed. I restrict the amount of carbs and the amount of refined carbohydrates and things you can take in because I know it's going to do all this other stuff. It's going to hijack your amygdala and your dopamine system. But the studies that I'm doing and the studies that they've done, if you put this and fiber in before you go get that refined or reprocessed carbohydrate, you will do better. Now, we don't promote that you go out and eat pancakes and waffles and all that stuff all at the same time, cheesecake and cookies and crackers, and you just can't. You just can't do it all the time. But what I'm saying to you is that it's not going to kill you if you accidentally, if, as I say to the patients all the time, if a piece of pizza just happens to attack you and jump into your mouth, it's not going to be the end of the world. All right. But you got to have the fiber in first, 15 minutes before that pizza hits the intestinal tract. Otherwise, this is your glucose absorption. This is your glucose sponge. When it gets into that, it's going to form a gel. And I always demonstrate that gel. I'll demonstrate it right here. You got to, I don't have the time, but I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to put this in here. So I just put it in a little water. It's going to make it like a little gel. And when you mix it in with that psyllium husk, it's going to make a gel pretty quick. That was a liquid. So this is going to be sitting in the bottom of my stomach. What this does is going to absorb cholesterol and it's going to absorb glucose. The whole point of this whole thing that we're talking about is to keep insulin down. So you don't become insulin resistant because all those diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, and amnesia, and all that kind of stuff are associated with insulin resistance. Insulin comes from you taking in foods that raise your glucose. This sucks in the glucose. This is what's going to sit at your stomach. And then after you get this inside, then you take a good 6 to 8 ounces of water and you make it a bigger sponge. It does two things. That bigger sponge is going to take up space. You're going to feel full. And then it's going to absorb the sugar. And you may eat maybe half of that pancake, if that, a quarter of that pancake for those taste buds. but you won't get that glucose spike. And therefore, you won't get that chronic insulin throughout the day. Make sense? Sure it does. All right. Anyway, all righty. So so what we'll do, I need vegan products. We got so as far as they have vegan fibers, they have pea protein as far as the vegan types of proteins. There are all sort of products out there for vegans that follow the protocol that we're talking about. So yeah, you got to eat your protein. You got to eat your 40 grams of proteins 4 times a day, or either 3 times a day, depends upon whether you're working out that day or not. 4 times a day, 12, 3, 6, and 8. If you're basically working out, doing strength training 4 times for 160 grams of protein versus 120 grams of protein. That was the other problem that I had this week. Nobody was taking over 100 grams of protein. That is a huge problem because you drop your muscle mass. You drop your muscle mass, you drop your insulin sink, you drop your metabolic engine. That is a problem. You're not going to feel it now. You're going to feel it 5 years from now when you have the weight regain, the fat regain, and you're not going to feel as healthy or as durable. All right. So yeah, to answer the questions, yeah, we do. There are all sort of vegan products that do the same thing. Unfortunately, after you have the surgery, the bypass, or anything of that sort, you got to take in a lot of pea protein, a lot of it, because the vegan proteins, the rice proteins, and all that, you got to take a lot more to get that 2.5 grams of leucine. Hope that makes sense. I promised you all I would quit today at 10 o'clock. I broke my promise again. I'm sorry about that. But I hope you learned something new. And if you did, just kind of put that you learned something new in the box and in the chat box. Let me let you learn something new today. And if it was, what was it that you learned? And I appreciate you all being here. And it was, yeah, very good. Somebody learned something new today. Very good. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next week. Okay. We're going to have something new next week, too. Something you didn't know. Take care.